Week 13 of the NFL season has come to an end, and a lot of crazy shit went down. That craziness will be reflected in this week's Power Rankings episode. Week 14 Power Rankings, only 4 weeks left of the season, man. I tried warning you guys. The NFL season goes by so quickly. And if you're a fan of a terrible team like myself, it's been over now for weeks. But for the rest of the league, it's coming to an end. And we're starting to reach a point where some of these teams are falling off of the map, falling off of a cliff a little bit, falling out of the playoff picture. And other teams are surging into the playoff picture. A lot of movement in this week's rankings. Maybe some unpopular spots, but it's just my opinion at the end of the day, guys. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that good stuff. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into these rankings. Number 32, obviously, it is the New York Jets. They should be 1-11. I mean, that obviously was a blatant tank job. A blatant tank job. I don't care what anybody in this organization says. I know, to me, I thought that the front office had to have made a call to the sidelines at some point in the game to say, yo, lose this fucking game right now. And Greg Williams said, okay, bet, watch this. Cover 0 on a Hail Mary. Unheard of. Never happened in NFL history. But then the Jets fired Greg Williams immediately, which kind of led me to believe that Greg Williams must have went rogue. And the Jets front office said, hey, I know we're trying to lose. We're tanking blatantly. We're openly trying to go 0-16. But even that was a little too far for us. You got to get fired. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what Greg Williams was thinking. Maybe he knew he was about to go, and he said, fuck this team. Watch this. Like, I'm going out guns a-blazing if I'm going out. Who knows? Think back to some of these other 0-16 teams in recent history. You have the Detroit Lions and Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of the end zone for the safety. You have the Browns from a few years ago and Corey Coleman dropping that pass when they went 0-16. That cover 0 blitz on the Hail Mary pass by Derek Carr will be this team's memorable play that everybody remembers a few years from now when we're talking about the 0-16 Jets. Because this team's going 0-16. They're not winning another game. All right? They're not winning another game. Okay, let's move on to number 31. We do have some movement here. I am putting the Bengals right here. The Bengals have lost 4 games in a row. They've lost 7 out of their last 8. Obviously, the Jags, who I do have at 30, have lost 11 in a row. But I just think this Bengals team has just been so, uncompetitive in recent weeks. Even before Burrow got hurt, they were really starting to slip. And now with Burrow out, obviously, Brandon Allen can't make up for Zach Taylor's coaching deficiencies, which are plenty. And we do have the Jags here at number 30, as I mentioned. They've obviously lost 11 straight games, but, they've been a little bit more competitive than the Bengals. They haven't been super competitive or anything, but they took the Vikings, so I think the Vikings are a pretty good team. Down to overtime, they could have very easily won that game. They lost to the Browns, who obviously the Browns are a really good team. They lost to the Browns on a 2-point conversion. They lost to the Texans a few weeks ago on a 2-point conversion. So this team has been a little bit more competitive than the Bengals have, which is why I'm moving them up. But these 3 teams right here, the Jets, the Bengals, and the Jags, are, bar none, the 3 worst teams in the NFL. I think any other year, either of these teams would have been the worst team in the NFL. The Jags, if it weren't for the Jets, worst team in the NFL. Bengals, if it weren't for the Jets, or the Jags, worst team in the NFL. Jets, any year in NFL history, they'd be the worst team in the NFL, because this could very easily be the worst team of all time. But, these 3 teams right here, absolutely terrible. At number 29, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, big news for them. They are moving on from Carson Wentz for the time being at least, and they are starting Jalen Hurts this upcoming week against the New Orleans Saints. A little bit too late? Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've been confused all year. You spend a second-round pick, which is a very valuable pick, on a quarterback, and you are so hesitant to put him in the game despite your starting quarterback statistically being the worst quarterback in the NFL by almost every single metric. But we're finally going to see Jalen Hurts get his chance. When he came in against the Packers, he didn't look great, honestly, but he did look good. And obviously, he sparked the offense. Like, that's what matters more than anything else. He gave this offense some life. And with how terrible and beat up their offensive line has been this season, they need somebody with the mobility of Jalen Hurts who can move around the pocket and escape pressure instead of ducking and just walking into sacks, essentially, like Carson Wentz did. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If Jalen Hurts struggles against a really, really good Saints defense, are they going to pull the plug on him and throw Carson Wentz back out there? Or are they going to just ride it out the rest of the way with Jalen Hurts and see what they got? And if Jalen Hurts does do well, or what are they going to do in the offseason with Carson Wentz? Because it's not like Carson Wentz is an easily movable asset. He's got a gigantic contract. He hasn't really been good for the last 3 seasons. I don't care about last year making the playoffs in a fucking terrible division. It's going to be really interesting to see what this team does in the offseason, because, it's hard to imagine them finding a trade partner. Everybody says, the Colts. Why would the Colts do that? Like, why would the Colts do that? I don't understand. I get the Frank Reich connection, but why would the Colts make that trade? Unless you're saying Carson Wentz gets cut, and then the Colts pick him up for cheap. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Oh, shit. That's not what I meant to do. All right, at number 28, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who have lost in embarrassing fashion 2 weeks in a row. It's just become, sad being a fan of this team. Early in the season, it was frustrating. It was all you could feel is anger. Now you just feel sad. You watch this team, and they all look like sad pieces of shit out there. They're all moping around, pouting. It's hard to get mad because this team doesn't care. So why should the fans, get worked up and care about them? Because the team obviously doesn't care. It's been this way for 2 years now. Obviously, remember last year Michael Bennett came in and was yelling at the team. Week 1 with the team was yelling at people in the locker room. This team has no leaders, no vocal leaders. Nobody on the team looks like they care. They're all dapping up players on the opposing team in the middle of the game while they're getting embarrassed. It's just embarrassing to be a fan of this franchise right now. And they have one of the worst outlooks in the NFL. I've seen a lot of people, Cowboys people on Twitter say, well, next year, you know what? It's been a weird COVID year. Next year they could come out and they could be contenders again. How? In what way? Are they going to completely overhaul their defense at every single position? A completely new offensive line, a new running back, and a completely new coaching staff? Okay, well then maybe. An unprecedented offseason where they completely have a new roster and coaching staff? Maybe. Jerry Jones goes to a retirement home? Maybe then. But that's not happening. Okay? We can talk about a weird COVID offseason for Mike McCarthy. What's the excuse for Joe? Why is that not happening with the Giants and Joe Judge? Ron Rivera with Washington. Matt Rule with the Cardinals, or with the Panthers. Stefanski with the Browns. All of these guys are new coaches. All of the new coaches in the NFL, Mike McCarthy is easily the biggest clown out of all of them. Like, every other new coach has actually done a good job. And Mike McCarthy has been pathetic. This entire coaching staff, terrible. I'm done with him. I don't want to give him a second chance. I really don't. We had Jason Garrett for far too long. I'm done, waiting around for coaches. Move on. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos at 27. They look pretty decent, honestly, against the Chiefs, but, ultimately just not talented enough and not healthy enough to keep up with the best team in the NFL. Spoilers, but, I thought it was Drew Lock's one of his better games. Obviously, the bar is in hell for him because he threw 2 interceptions, and here we are talking about it was one of his better performances. One of those interceptions was towards the end of the game. 30 seconds left, 4th down. Threw a pass that he probably didn't need to throw, but did anyway, and he got picked off. But, yeah, this Broncos team, they have a lot of questions to answer as well this offseason, coaching-wise and the quarterback position. What are they going to do? Are they going to run it back with Drew Lock again and see what he has when the team's a little bit more healthy? Or are they going to move on either through the draft or through free agency, trade? Who knows? At number 26, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. A lot of us power rankers were very friendly to the Chargers all season long, but 45-0, and now you're 3-9. So enough of that. This team is bad. This team is bad. Right now, I think if the season were to end today, they would have the 4th pick in the draft, which is kind of crazy because just this team is not 3-9. Like, I know the record is 3-9, but they're too talented. They've performed too well. Going into this week, they had top 12 offense and defense, and here they were 3-8 going into this week. Obviously, after the end of this week, I'm sure those metrics are going to drop significantly, 45-0. Anthony Lynn obviously has to go. This could be a blessing in disguise for Chargers fans. You can just rip the Band-Aid off. And move on. I feel bad for Anthony Lynn because I like the guy, and he used to be a good coach, but he's got to go. At number 25, we have the Chicago Bears, who have lost 6 straight games. You know what? I'm going to tell you, a lot like the Chargers. For Bears fans, I know the season has sucked. I know recent weeks have absolutely sucked. But this could be a blessing in disguise for you guys, right? I've talked about this with the Lions a few weeks ago, that I know the Lions were technically in the playoff hunt, but they just needed some ugly, gross losses so they could rip the Band-Aid off and move on from Patricia and have no questions asked, right? That happened. Thanksgiving, horrible loss to the Texans, and Matt Patricia's out the door. This is what needs to happen with this Bears team. They need some ugly, ugly losses, some ugly performances, so they can just rip the Band-Aid off and move on from Nagy, move on Trubisky without any second guessing. And that is what we're starting to see here. 6 straight losses. This loss against the Lions was embarrassing. They had it all but wrapped up. 10-point lead, 9 minutes left. They pick off Matt Stafford, and they still somehow blow it and lose the game. It's clear that this team needs a new coach. This team needs a new quarterback. It's going to be really interesting to see what this team does because they have a lot of talent, and a lot of that talent is aging. So it's not like they have time to sit around and wait. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Bears do this upcoming offseason. At number 24, we do have the Lions. First game without Matt Patricia, they get a win. That's probably not a coincidence. This team is technically still alive in the playoff hunt, but let's be real. They're not making the playoffs. What they probably will do is win a couple more games to close out the season and sort of spoil some other teams who are hoping to make the playoffs. We'll see. But that's pretty much all there is to say about the Lions. They're going to get a new coach in the offseason. What are they going to do with Stafford? I think they should probably keep him, if we're being honest. But another team that's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the offseason with. At number 23, we have the Houston Texans. Bill O'Brien, his decisions has fucked. They fucked this franchise for the foreseeable future, man. This team has one of the bleaker outlooks despite having Deshaun Watson. You know, it's crazy because Deshaun Watson is one of the most popular players in the NFL. But still, I don't think he's gotten the recognition he deserves for how well he's playing this year. And a lot of that has to do with their 4-8 record. Obviously, you had Nick Martin with the terrible snap against the Colts. Texans were in a great position to score a touchdown and take the lead. You know, you have J.J. Watt on the sideline laughing to keep from crying. And then you have Deshaun Watson with the towel over his head coming out after the game saying he's sick of losing. You have to feel bad for him. Because, I mean, he's playing his ass off. So is J.J. Watt. And they really have nothing to show for it because Bill O'Brien's terrible decision-making from a front office perspective has set this team back for years. All right, next up at 22, we have the Carolina Panthers off of a bye. They moved down a spot just because of everything else going on around them. This fucking Christian McCaffrey situation, right? Fantasy playoffs are upon us. A lot of us, myself included, need Christian McCaffrey to be playing so we can win the championship, and now he has a new injury, right? He was dealing with his shoulder, missed a couple games because of it. A few days ago, I saw that he was 100% ready to go this upcoming week against the Broncos, and now all of a sudden he has a thigh injury. Like, what? And is Christian McCaffrey, is he injury prone now? Everyone talks about the Madden curse, that the Madden curse is bad. The first overall pick in the fantasy draft, in fantasy football drafts, curse is even more real. Think about it. Think about all of the number one picks in fantasy football in recent years. They either are hurt, they hold out like Le'Veon Bell did, or they're just complete and total busts. Think about it. Scary stuff. Hopefully Christian McCaffrey plays. Maybe it's just a Wednesday thing where they're just kind of, taking it easy with him. We'll see. At number 21, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who lost for the second time in 3 weeks to the New Orleans Saints this past week. They ripped the Band-Aid off. With Dan Quinn earlier in the season. Now it's time to rip the Band-Aid off with Dirk Koetter. That guy sucks. This offense, there's no reason this offense should be as anemic as it is at times with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley, Hayden Hurst, with all of the weapons that they have. No reason. So I'm assuming that Dirk Kotter's going to be out of here after the season is over. It's going to be interesting to see what this team does in the offseason too, because, it's not like they have time to rebuild. You got an aging Matt Ryan and an aging Julio Jones. Are they going to try to make big-time moves this offseason to set the team up for success next year, or are they going to do like a soft little mini rebuild where maybe they punt next season in hopes for one last ride with Matt Ryan in 2021? I don't know. We'll see. At number 20, we have the San Francisco 49ers, who I am dropping 5 spots after a loss to the Bills on Monday night. The thing about that game against the Bills that left me with a bad taste in my mouth with this team is that their defense looked absolutely horrific. And that's sort of the calling card of this team. And with all their injuries on offense, that's sort of what this team needed. The team needs their defense to step up if they wanted to make the playoffs. And they looked absolutely terrible. They got no pressure on Josh Allen at all. They couldn't cover anybody. Cole Beasley went nuts. Stephon Diggs went nuts. Josh Allen had a field day against this defense. And 34-24, the score wasn't even that close because the Niners scored a last-second garbage time touchdown. But even though it sounds like Jimmy G and Kittle might be back, I think next week, I think this loss against the Bills might have been the nail in the coffin for the Niners. They would need to win out, and they would need a lot of help in order to make the playoffs at this stage. But this loss against the Bills might have been it for them. At number 19, I have the Arizona Cardinals dropping a lot. You see, I'm way harder on them than anybody else, but I just think this Cardinals team has one of the worst trajectories in the NFL over recent weeks. They've lost 3 straight games. They've lost 4 of the last 5 games, and their one win in that span was the Hail Mary win against the Buffalo Bills. They lose that game. We're talking about a team that's lost 5 straight games. It's just they've been figured out. We've talked about it on the channel before. Teams are starting to blitz them more and more. Cliff Kingsbury, for whatever reason, is incapable of adapting and changing his game plan on the fly to help Kyler Murray out when other teams are blitzing him. And Kyler Murray has struggled against the blitz, admittedly. He hasn't been terrible or anything, and he has been a little shaken up. But this team has been figured out, I think. And defensively, they're not playing well at all. And their offense is not playing as well as it was early in the season to make up for their poor defensive play. So I have the Cardinals here at 19. Obviously, they're on the outside looking in right now of the playoffs, and it's hard to imagine them flipping the script moving forward, even though they do have a sort of, they got the Giants this upcoming week, and then they got the Eagles. Those are 2 games they're very capable of winning, but then they close out against the Niners and Rams. So we'll see. They have to win these next 2 games. If they lose either of those games, the Giants or Eagles, it is done. It is done. At number 18, we have the Washington football team, one of the biggest upsets of the week, beating the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday afternoon. If you watch this channel, though, I told you guys Washington was going to beat Pittsburgh. I just felt, all these analysts saying it was one of the craziest upsets of all time. I've seen people say that. I don't know how you could say that if you've been watching and paying attention to either of these teams. Washington has been playing a lot better as of late. In fact, I would even say that they've been above average to even solid team in recent weeks. Are they amazing? No. If they were in any other division, are we even talking about them as a playoff team? Probably not. But really, ever since they beat the Cowboys, or really ever since Alex Smith got a chance, this offense has looked a lot better. Antonio Gibson has started to flourish. Obviously, it sounds like he might miss some time with a turf toe injury, so that sucks for Washington, even though J.D. McKissick did look pretty good in filling in for him in the Steelers game, because Gibson got hurt almost immediately. So we know this defense. We know what this defense is capable of, and now their offense is really starting to come along. It's going to be close between them and the Giants, really. I think they're neck and neck. I think it's like a coin toss. I really do. I think these teams are really close. I have the Giants at 17. The Giants have quietly been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Nobody's really talking about it. They've won 4 straight games, and they've won 5 of their last 7 games. And then the 2 losses they've had, we've talked about this, were a last-second loss against the Eagles where Evan Ingram drops a pass. If he catches it, they can milk the clock and win the game. And then a loss on a 2-point conversion on Monday Night Football against the Bucs a week later. So this team has been playing really well as of late. Their offense has come around. It sounds like Daniel Jones might come back. This win against the Seahawks was huge because Colt McCoy was playing. Obviously, Colt McCoy really didn't look that bad. He didn't look great or anything like that. They definitely won this game on the backs of their defense and their running game, because Wayne Gallman has been one of the biggest surprises in the NFL so far this season, the way that he's played in Saquon Barkley's absence. But this team, I think, me personally, they're in the driver's seat as far as playoffs go. I know that they are first place. I think they have the tiebreaker over Washington because they beat Washington earlier this year. They beat Washington twice this year, actually. And to close out the season, they have a struggling Cardinals team, the Browns, who are good, the Ravens on the road in Baltimore in a game where the Ravens might have to win, and then the Cowboys to close out the season. So, both of these teams, Washington and New York, have semi-difficult schedules the rest of the way. We'll see how it ends up shaping up. It's going to be one of these things where either whatever one of these 2 teams makes the playoffs, everyone jokes and laughs at the NFC East. I promise you're not going to be that excited about playing this team. Okay? I promise you're not going to be that excited about playing them. All right, moving forward. Sorry, some weird shit was going on in my OBS. All right, moving forward, we have the New England Patriots here at 16. They're starting to come along. It's starting to get a little bit spooky because they're playing that New England style where they'll score on you with defense, they'll score on you with special teams, and they have really sort of figured out on offense, there's no point of even trying to pretend like Cam Newton's gonna win games through the air. So let's just run the ball. Damian Harris has been really, really good for them. They're 4-5. They're 4-1 over their last 5 games against pretty solid teams too. You have the Ravens in there, the Cardinals, even this Chargers team. I know the Chargers team is 3-9, but they're more competitive than that. And they got a shot. They got a shot at making the playoffs, but they do have some tough games. The Rams and the Dolphins on the road the next 2 weeks. Both of those are tough games. And the Bills at home, and then the Jets week 17. So if they can get to that Jets game needing to win to make the playoffs, they're in pretty good shape. So we'll see. They're playing really good football as of late. At number 15, we have the Raiders, who I'm dropping a spot despite beating the Jets. Remember, they needed the most obvious tank play of all time in order to beat the Jets. This team has been in a downward spiral in recent weeks. It's a lot like last year, man. It's a lot like last year. The same exact thing happened last year where this team just fell off of a cliff around the week 12, week 13 mark, and here we are again. They lost to the Chiefs 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago on Monday Night Football. They played them close. You know, the Chiefs won on, it wasn't a last-second touchdown, like a last-minute touchdown on Travis Kelce. But then they got absolutely embarrassed by the Falcons and damn near lost to the Jets. So I don't know what to think of this team. I still think this team can beat anybody, but they have obviously shown they can also lose to anybody. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, this team, I think they're on the outside looking in for playoffs. I could be wrong, but their schedule the rest of the way is not that difficult. They got the Colts at home this upcoming week, which is a tough game. But then they have the Chargers at home, a game they should win. A game at home against the Dolphins, which might be gigantic as far as playoff implications go. And then a road game against the Broncos to close out the season. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. They can't lose any of these games that they should win the rest of the way, obviously. All right, at number 14, we have the Minnesota Vikings, another team that's been playing really, really, really well as of late, even though it hasn't been all that pretty. They needed overtime to beat this abysmal Jacksonville team. And just, 2 weeks ago, they needed a last-second touchdown to beat the Panthers. That was a week after losing in embarrassing fashion to the Cowboys. So this team, they haven't blown the doors off of anybody, but they're 5-1 over their last 6 games. So this team is obviously making a push to make the playoffs. If the season were to end today, they would be in the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team performs moving forward, because they do have a pretty difficult schedule. They got to play the Bucs, they got to play the Saints, but they also have the Lions and the Bears, 2 games which they should win. You would think that they would win. So we'll see. This team, they control their own destiny at this point, and I like the way Kirk has been playing. I like Dalvin Cook. Like I think this is genuinely a good team, but they can't lose, right? Like they could not afford to lose this game to Jacksonville. So it's good that they won, but it's a little disheartening that they needed overtime. At number 13, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who drop a spot off of a bye. Again, just due to everything around them. I don't know. This Bucs team, they're just so weird because they can beat anybody. Like, this team is a Super Bowl contender, make no mistake about it, but they also might miss the playoffs. Like, this team is an enigma right now. I don't know. I don't know. It feels like one second it looks like they're putting it together. The next second they look like a complete and total disgrace. They've lost 2 games in a row. They've lost 3 of their last 4. And their schedule is very favorable, though. Their schedule is very, very favorable. They got a tough game against the Vikings this upcoming week. We know the Vikings need to win that game if they want to make the playoffs. But then they have the Falcons twice and the Lions. So this team should close the season hot, I guess is what I'm getting at, in going full steam ahead into the playoffs. Let's go to number 12. We have the Baltimore Ravens, who I am dropping. Remember, last week's Power Rankings, we did the episode before the Ravens and the Steelers game. So just think about it as the Ravens have played twice since we last ranked them, and they're 1-1. Obviously, the Steelers game is tough to hold that against them because half their team is out due to COVID. But this game against the Cowboys, I know 34-17, they blew them out. But I wasn't all that impressed. They were able to run the ball really, really well, but that's more of the Cowboys. The Cowboys' run defense is absolutely terrible, man. It's absolutely horrific. What was the stat that a team has allowed 3 different 90-yard rushers this season twice? That twice this season there have been 3 different 90-yard rushers, and both of those times have been against the Cowboys. The Cleveland Browns did it against the Cowboys, and now the Ravens did it against the Cowboys. They almost had 300 yards rushing. Like, they ran all over this Cowboys team, which is what they need to do. So that is, encouraging. But can they do it against actual competent teams? We're about to find out. They play the Browns on Monday Night Football this upcoming week. A huge, huge, huge game, which the Ravens absolutely have to win. Like, the Ravens are entering must-win territory pretty much from here on out the rest of the way because the AFC is that competitive. At number 11, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who I'm dropping out of the top 10 entirely. You see everybody else still has them. Top 7, there's no fucking way. There's just no way I can put the Seahawks team, in the top 7, let alone the top 10, let alone the top 7. I know, like, they lost to the Giants. I'm of the belief the Giants are a better team than a lot of people think. But still, this team now, for weeks, has just kind of been going through the motions. Their offense, which they need to rely on because their defense is not good, their offense has just been sluggish. Russell Wilson has not looked good at all. Russell Wilson completely threw his MVP chances away, turning the ball over like a madman. and they've struggled to get the run game going. DK Metcalf has been really good, but it seems like for a lot of the game, they struggle to get him involved, and then sometimes it's either too late or when they need him most, they can't get him involved, and he does drop a lot of big passes. So I don't know. I'm very concerned about this team. I think obviously they make the playoffs, but how far can they go in the playoffs? I don't know. You're going to have to rely on Russell Wilson going back to how he looked earlier in the season where he was the runaway MVP, and you're going to have to rely on that every single game of the playoffs, because if Russ slips against a playoff caliber team, they're going to lose because their defense is not good enough, and they've had issues establishing the run all year long. So that's where we're at with this Seahawks team. We'll see. I mean, I still think that they can cause some issues because obviously they have Russell Wilson, but it hasn't been a great past few weeks for them. That is for sure. At number 10, we have the Miami Dolphins. This was a very encouraging game against the Bengals. I know the Bengals aren't very good, and it took a while to pull away from, and even at times it looked like they could lose this game. But the second half of this game, we saw them air it out with Tua for really the first time. It really felt like the first time they lifted all of their restraints off of Tua and sort of let him do his thing. They sort of let him go out of the pocket, make throws downfield, and you saw that it worked. Like, Tua looked really good in the second half of this game, probably the best he's looked all season. And this defense has been playing lights out as of late. And this is a dangerous team. They have a difficult schedule the rest of the way, so it's not even really a guarantee that they make the playoffs. But if they can get in there, I think this is a dangerous team with how they play. They are very well coached. They have a good defense. They force turnovers. And offensively, they're not great, but they don't make a lot of mistakes. They have, closing out the season, they probably I'm willing to venture to guess that they have the toughest schedule to close out. They got the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bills. So it's going to be tough. But I think they can do it. I think they can sneak out 2 wins, which is probably all they need to make the playoffs. And who knows? Maybe that Bills game, Week 17, maybe that's for the division. That would be crazy. At number 9, we have the Tennessee Titans, who got absolutely embarrassed by the Browns. I know it looks like they only lost by 6 points. That really is not the case. I guess you got to give them some props for making a game out of it, despite the fact that they were losing, 38-7 at halftime. 38-7 at halftime. Again, you give them some props for coming back, but this game against the Browns really showcased the weaknesses of this team, which is the third down defense, which I think greatly limits where this team can go in the playoffs. If you just can't get off the field, if you can't stop teams on third down, you're going to have a tough time winning the game. And we saw this against the Browns. If their opponent, if you're playing the Titans and you can sort of get them out of their rhythm offensively early and force them to leave their game plan, which is give the ball to Derrick Henry, give the ball to Derrick Henry, give the ball to Derrick Henry, you have a really good shot of winning. Even though, Ryan Tannehill has been amazing this year, and A.J. Brown is absolutely amazing. The Titans obviously want to run the ball, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they want to hide their defense. So if you can limit Derrick Henry's productivity early on in the game, and you can start putting up points, well, you find yourself in a really good position against this Titans team. I still like this team. I just think this third down defense, it's way too late in the season to really fix it. And it's going to really hurt them come playoff time. At number 8, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who I'm higher on than everyone else. I'm the only person out of these three, I guess, who have them in the top 10. I just think this defense is super good. Super good. Full of playmakers. They make a lot of plays. They force a lot of turnovers. And that is a recipe for success, especially come playoff time when you need your defense to make big plays and big-time moments. I think this team is capable of it. Obviously, their offense can be very shaky at times, but I think it's good enough. I think if you have to rely and depend on it, you're going to be in trouble. But I think it's good enough to supplement their really, really good defense. At number 7, we have the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns at 9-3. What a shocker. What a shocker. I think most people thought the Browns could be a good team this year, but I don't think 9-3 entering Week 14 was something that we all really thought could be a possibility. They run the ball incredibly well. They have the best rushing attack in the NFL when Nick Chubb is playing. Stefanski, Coach of the Year? Like, is Stefanski Coach of the Year? He might be. This is what I was saying with Mike McCarthy. Like, Mike McCarthy gets the COVID excuse from all Cowboys fans. Then it's like, yeah, have you watched the Browns play, dude? Like, they look like a completely different franchise. Stefanski was the perfect choice for this Browns team. Baker Mayfield, best game of his career, easily, I would say. Maybe that Bengals game earlier in the season where he threw 4 touchdowns in the second half. But Baker has his moments where he looks unbelievably good, if he could find some sort of consistency entering the playoffs, this Browns team is like an outside dark horse contender. They really are, because they can run the ball incredibly well. Defensively, they're not amazing, but they have some really good players, obviously, in Ward and Myles Garrett, two of the best players at the position. Myles Garrett, maybe the best player at the position. And they can force turnovers, they can force mistakes, and then you supplement that with their very, very, very talented run game. And that's a recipe for success in the playoffs. We'll see. We'll see how it translates. This team, the rest of the way, they got the Giants, the Jets. So this team's making the playoffs unless they completely Browns it up. This game against the Ravens here on Monday night is going to be very interesting. Very interesting, because the Ravens are going to have to win that game. And remember, earlier in the season, week 1, the Browns got embarrassed by the Ravens. Jesus. All right, number 6 is the Rams. Maybe some people might be upset that I have the Rams over the Browns, but I just think that I've been high on this Rams team all year long. I think they're the biggest dark horse Super Bowl contender. If Jared Goff doesn't turn the ball over 3 or 4 times, this team is very, very, very difficult to beat. They have just a smothering defense at every level. And offensively, they have one of the biggest offensive masterminds in the NFL calling the shots. They get everybody involved. They do a lot of motion. They just give teams hell defensively. They give defenses hell, and all of the things that they can do and all of the people that get involved, the talent that they have. And Jared Goff, again, sometimes he's really good. Sometimes he's absolute shit. When playoffs come, he's going to have to be good. He can't turn the ball over 3 or 4 times if this team wants to win a Super Bowl, which I definitely think they're capable of doing. All right, at number 5, here we go. Top 5. I think everybody's top 5 is the same as far as teams go. I think everybody has the same teams in the top 5. It's just, where are these teams located? I think everybody has the same number 1 as well. But the 2 through 5 spot, where are they located? All of these teams are interchangeable. Okay, maybe the number 2 is safe in the number 2. But a lot of these teams are interchangeable. I definitely can hear arguments for teams being in different spots, but this is just where I have them right now. Remember, these teams are neck and neck. So just remember that. Remember that, Packers fans, when I put the Packers at 5. I'm dropping them a spot despite winning. I think out of all the top 5 teams, this Packers defense is the biggest weakness. Like, they're very inconsistent. They have the potential to be really good, but can they do that consistently? That remains to be seen. Aaron Rodgers is playing at an MVP level. He's been absolutely absurdly good. Devontae Adams is looking like a top 2 wide receiver in the NFL. Aaron Jones is sort of wishy-washy. This team can beat anybody. Like, that's the thing. Like, this team is a top 5 team. They're absolutely amazing. You could put them at number 2, and I wouldn't argue. But these teams are just so close. I just have the Packers here because out of all of these 4 teams, their defense raises the most questions for me. Okay, and at number 4, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm dropping them all the way to 4 after losing. I've been saying, and the reason why I picked Washington this past week was I just feel like the Steelers team has been begging for a loss. You know, they haven't been all that impressive in recent weeks. Offensively, it's just like it's like they ran into a wall. Offensively, they have all of this amazing wide receiver talent, but the receivers can't catch the ball. Eric Ebron drops everything. Deontay Johnson drops everything. They can't go deep anymore. Remember, like early in the season, they were going deep to Chase Claypool 6 fucking times a game, and it was seemingly always worked. It was incredible. Now that they don't go deep at all, I don't know if they're just kind of like, I don't know if they're kind of coasting at this point. That could be the case, but maybe a loss is what this team needed. Maybe a loss is what this team needed because they've had a lot of ugly wins. And it's kind of easy for a team to get comfortable after those ugly wins to think, man, look how good we are. Like, we can play 70% and win. So maybe a loss is what this team needed to wake them up and realize, hey, we're not a 16-0 team, obviously. Like we're not even the best team in the conference. So we're really going to have to figure some shit out going into the playoffs if we want to win a Super Bowl. And this team can win a Super Bowl. Their defense is absolutely amazing. The offense is just a little shaky. But, you know, if they can figure some stuff out heading into the playoffs with the defense that they have, this team could win a Super Bowl. Like, they really could. At number 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. This team has been amazing. This team has been absolutely amazing in recent weeks. Offensively, I mean, they're low-key one of the best offenses in the NFL. And that's crazy because they really have no run game whatsoever. They really have no run game. Devin Singletary has been a disappointment. Zach Moss has been a disappointment. But Josh Allen has been so good. Cole Beasley has been so good. Stephon Diggs has been so good that it doesn't really matter. Their offensive line has been really, really good. And their defense has really started to step up. Their defense has really, really, really started to step up, and you have a quarterback playing at MVP level and Josh Allen over the past 6 or 7 weeks. So I have the Bills here at 3. I just think that they've been one of the, and remember, like, okay, so they've won 5 of their last 6 games. That one loss was that Hail Mary loss against the Cardinals, where if you watch that game, the Bills outplayed the Cardinals. The Cardinals just got very, very lucky. The Bills got very, very unlucky. They win that game. They've won 6 in a row. I have the Bills here at 3. Again, I get the argument. You can make the argument for them being at 5. Everybody has them at 5. But I'm putting them at the 3 spot. At number 2, we have the Saints. I think I can confidently say the Saints are number 2. I don't think I would change them with anybody else in the top 5. Their defense is just playing lights out right now. Which is what we've wanted to see from this defense. They're so fast defensively. They are so fast pretty much at every single level, and they just smother you. They swarm you. Their defense is just playing. There's just a lot of electricity when their defense plays. Like, you can just feel the energy when their defense plays. And obviously, you know, as much as I fucking hate to say it, and I do hate to say it, you got to give Taysom Hill some props because he has played well in Drew Brees' absence. You know, he hasn't been amazing or anything. If some team was dumb enough to make him their starting quarterback next season, that team deserves all of the losses that they will eventually get. But, you know, he's come in and he's done his thing. He's played well enough for them to win. And now it kind of sounds like Drew Brees might be coming back soon. If I were the Saints, honestly, there's really no reason to rush Brees, especially if he's not going to be at 100%, just because, you know, you're 10-2. You've proven that you don't really need him. And the rest of the way, you've got the Eagles. I mean, that's a game you should win. But then you got the Chiefs, Vikings, and Panthers. All 3 of those games could be tough. Obviously, the Chiefs is going to be tough, but then the Vikings are going to be fighting for their playoff lives. The Panthers, you know, it's a tough divisional game. So I have the Saints here too. They're starting to look the part. They're definitely starting to look like the team that we all sort of thought that they could be early on. I mean, they've won 9 straight games. So they are, I think, pretty easily the best team in the NFC. And then the best team in the NFL, I think, pretty easily is the Kansas City Chiefs. This Denver game was weird. I talked about it when I was talking about Denver. Yeah, you know, Denver was close. I mean, Denver was winning for a lot of the game, but it just always kind of felt like the Chiefs were going to pull away and win, and they did. It didn't even feel like the Chiefs were playing bad. Like, it was just the Denver Broncos were hanging around, and then the Chiefs sort of pulled away. There are questions about this defense. You know, Melvin Gordon had 100 yards at halftime. So this defense isn't perfect at all, but with how good this offense is, like, the defense does not need to be perfect. The defense does not need to be perfect. It just needs to not be atrociously bad, and it's not atrociously bad. In fact, they have times where they look really, really good. So this is easily the team to beat in the NFL, and I don't know if any team does. It almost feels like you have to play completely perfect to beat them, or else Patrick Mahomes will kill you, Tyreek Hill will kill you, Travis Kelce will kill you, Andy Reid will kill you. And their defense, you know, if you slip up, their defense will force a mistake. And if you give this offense a short field, or if you set your off, or if you set, you know, if you find yourself behind the 8 ball because you're turning the ball over, you're done for against this team. Like, you almost have to play a perfect game to beat them. So we'll see. This game in 2 weeks against the Saints, I mean, that could be a Super Bowl preview. That could very easily be a Super Bowl preview. So that'll be must-watch TV. And that's what we got this week. Again, a lot of movement. And really, again, we say this every week, not a lot of clarity. At least not from, like, the 5 spot onward. I think you have your top 5 teams right now pretty safely. I think the Rams could maybe sneak in there depending on how the final 4 weeks shape up. But I think you have your top 5 teams. And I think those are really the solid contenders. And then you have, like, your dark horse teams like the Rams, the Browns. And then I'd maybe even throw the Colts as a secret dark horse. And then from there on out, you have teams that are sort of teetering on the edge of being in the playoffs, not being in the playoffs. They're usually super consistent, like the Cardinals, the Vikings, the Raiders. These teams very, very inconsistent. And the Vikings trending upwards, the Raiders and the Cardinals trending downwards. So that's what we got this week. Like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Okay, goodbye.